All right, let's get started with our live critiques, guys. I know it's Friday, but I'm not going to be around tomorrow, so normally we would do our live critique sessions on Saturday, but because of that, we're going to be doing them today. And I have our first one imported in ZBrush already, and we are going to be looking at this for a little while we wait for some more people to pop in and join us. If you don't know, I'm Follygon, and you can call me Ben. Doesn't really matter. That's my real name. But other than that, let me just make sure. I got some images here. Can't remember where I put them. Ah, there we go. Okay, cool. And the email. Let me go ahead and open up my email as well. If you are new to the critiques here, let me go ahead and put the instructions in chat for you. For the email address. You can go ahead and shoot me an email, follygon@gmail.com, include in that email a ZTool file, and we can go ahead and take a look at one of your sculpts or whatever you got going on. But yeah, let's take a look at what we got here. So this is a model sent to me by Alexander, and Alexander says, let's see. Trying to learn how to sculpt humans the last 41 days. That's a very specific number of days. I like it. Last 41 days, spent about 1.5 hours for sculpting heads, mostly copying sculpts of professional artists from ArtStation. Please show anatomy mistakes. Should I continue to make heads, or is it time to move on to other body parts? All right, so you want some help with the anatomy on this head, and you are wondering if you should continue sculpting heads or move on to creating more stuff with the body. I'll answer that last part first about kind of moving on to other stuff. I mean, that's really up to you. It kind of depends on what you're wanting to do. It sounds like maybe you want to make a full character, so if you want to do that, then I would say go ahead and start moving on to some other stuff. There is some good stuff going on here, but there's also some definite room for improvement. And yeah, I think we can get in here and take a look at a few of those things. So let's go ahead and do that. You say that you're mostly copying sculpts of professional artists from ArtStation. A quick note on that. I would highly encourage and recommend people to not work off of other people's sculpts or other people's art if you're trying to study anatomy. I would look at real people because you're kind of getting secondhand information when you do that. So what ends up happening is one artist's mistakes become your mistakes, and you're probably doing even more mistakes on top of that because you're learning. So I would just look at the real thing, look at some real reference, and go from there. So I have, because you didn't send me a reference image, it's going to be a little hard for me to critique some stuff in the anatomy in terms of likeness and everything, but in terms of just anatomical, accuracies that we want to get a little bit closer to here, I have a couple images that we can look at for your profile and straight on view there. I believe this is a female face from what I can tell. That's the vibe that I'm kind of getting here. I know it's bald and it's a little tough to tell. We can also look a little bit at this pretty popular planar face that you can find online just by Googling planar face. You should be able to find it. It's pretty good anatomical reference, in my opinion, for just blocking out and getting some of those early proportions. I also have something imported into ZBrush already, which is just this little planar guide, which we will be using to fix the first major issue that I see with Alexander's head. Which, if you cannot tell just by looking at it, it is a little tall, a little bit too tall. So let me see here. Make sure I didn't miss anything in chat. And we can go ahead and get started actually doing some sculpting. Cool. So I have imported this using the Spotlight tool. And you can do that very easily just by coming up here and do texture, load Spotlight. It's great for loading in references or maybe something like that planar head. I have a tutorial for how to use this tool on my YouTube channel, and you can do stuff like if you import that planar head, you can turn down the opacity on it if you want to be able to do like a see-through mode or something like that. You can also throw images behind the ZBrush window. I'm sure a lot of people know about this, but you got this little see-through slider up there that you can play around with as well. Then I've activated my movie timeline. I've clicked on the show button here, and that allows me to create a couple points that I can snap to on my timeline. I can click and drag between those, or I can just click and snap between those two different areas. So the first thing that really stuck out to me in your head was how long or tall it looks. Very tall, and it feels a little bit awkward. It feels a little bit egg-heady too. It feels a little bit large up here. And I think some of these issues, you know, are just proportional things that we can fix. But as I start to turn around on this model, as I start to turn it, it kind of starts to break anatomically in certain areas, like around the mouth. We're starting to lose a lot of volume in here. The cheekbones feel a little, or not just the cheekbones, but the cheeks feel a little bit large. There's just a few things here that we want to fix in general. Looking at the silhouette coming back here, again, we got that like large head. It looks pretty large from the front, but also from the back, where we want maybe a little bit more neck in there to kind of support that big head. But also, I think it would really help you. I'm not sure if you're sculpting with perspective on or not. If Alexander, you end up jumping in here or watching this later on my YouTube channel, let me know if you were using perspective. From what I can tell, it seems like either you were sculpting without perspective the entire time, or with maybe some like really extreme perspective setting. I'm really not sure. But what I recommend, just keep that on the default of 50, and you know, turn that off if you're working maybe on an orthographic. But other than that, try to keep that on when working on your head. I think it'll help you out a lot. Other than that, those are the only notes I will say before we get in here and do some more sculpting. Oh man, I'm gonna butcher this name. I'm not even gonna try again. Says, hey dude, looks nice. Well, thank you, but it's not mine. This is a critique that we are doing right now. So let's go ahead and get into it and start actually making some changes. Because this is Dynameshed, I am going to do some quick remeshing on this to make it a little bit easier to work with. Let me look at your eyes as well. Alright, I'll give you some tips on those eyeballs as well so we can fix those. Make them a little bit easier to work with, as well as your eyelids and shapes in the eyes in general. Alright, so we want to make this easier to work with. Let's bring this res down quite a bit. Let's go like 5K or so. Do a quick remesh, hold on, make sure symmetry is on before we do that. And let that calculate for a moment. And then I will be able to work on this a little bit more easily. And I'll show you why I'm doing this, once this is finished calculating, of course. Because this is Dynameshed, we're a little under 1 million polys. That's really nothing. That's not like huge or anything. The main problem is that I can't make large scale changes very easily. So if I want to come in here with my move brush and start moving something, what ends up happening is it squashes other areas. If you look at your brush, you have that inner red circle and that outer red circle. That is your brush's fall off. So it'll affect in this inner red circle, of course, but within that outer red circle is kind of where that fall off starts to occur. So you can make that sharper or steeper, but because we have such a high resolution mesh, we will end up pretty much always getting these areas where we have this really tight kind of transition between the brush stroke and the rest of the changes that we made. Therefore, I've made something a little bit more low res now, so we can affect this a little bit easier. Dan's, what is going on? Thank you for the follow. How you doing, man? Let's go ahead and project this and start making our changes now that we can actually have something to work on. So I'm doing some quick projections. The topology of this I'm not too worried about. We're going to be making quite a few changes here. So we'll do one more subdiv. I don't think we need another projection. I think that'll be good, and we'll go from there. Sixit, what is going on, dude? Yep, just type in !critique into chat, and you guys can get the instructions on how to get your stuff critiqued today on our stream. It is just follygon@gmail.com, and once we're done taking a look at this, we can take a look at whoever is next in the queue. So the faster you get in, the faster we can look at your stuff. If we end up getting too many today, we will look at more next weekend, which will be hopefully on Friday or Saturday next week. That's German? Yeah. I gave up like halfway through your name, so. What's going on, Dans? And let's see. So I'm just starting with ZBrush. That's the most weird program ever. I was just watching a tutorial on how to make my first model. Well, very cool. Welcome to the club. Sixit is sending an email. Awesome. Get right in there. You should be next because I believe this is the only one we have thus far. So like I said, first thing that really stuck out to me was how large your head is. You got a big dome here, big old noggin. So I think proportionally you're pretty close in terms of where you want the nose and lips to fall. I just kind of lined up your eyes and went from there with our little guide here. So let's do that. So bringing that down, I think that helps a lot. But the other thing that we need to do is bring in the sides of the head a little bit. So let's do that next. And you can find a little grid like this online if you are struggling to figure out some of those proportions. I'll remind people or tell people that are just joining in with us. Alexander had said that he was copying other artists' work on ArtStation. I highly encourage you to not do that, but instead try to look at, if you're trying to get those anatomical truths in there, don't copy off someone else because they're going to have mistakes. Instead, copy off of the real thing here. I think you're going to be, oops, that's not the image I wanted. You're going to be a lot better off. And then we can use that see-through mode and go from there. Here. I'm going to close that. Alright. So we have made those quick little changes there. I am mainly just going to use the right side of my face just because in terms of width here, I'm not too worried about how wide your face is. I think you're actually pretty fine in that. The only area where the width really starts to break down, and a quick note on the resolution here, I'm going to be working on this on the lowest resolution for the most part, just because we have some big changes that we want to make. After we're done making those, we'll start to get in on specifics like your eyes, nose, mouth, lips, ears, etc. But I want to pull out this area around your ears. They're really like pushed in and sunk in. So I want to pull those out a little bit. Thank you for the follow, Iguardo. I'll just go with Iguardo for now because I know I'm gonna destroy your name, and we'll avoid embarrassing myself too much. All right, so we'll do that. We'll look back up here. Let's mask off our chin a little bit, just so I can grab my move brush and do like a big old push up. I'm gonna move my mouth and my nose up a little bit, get a little bit closer to what I'm seeing there. Our head is still, pretty long and wide back here. If we roll back on our undos, so we've gotten rid of that wideness, we've pulled it down, but we need that neck to support that large head. So there are two things that need to happen. Probably a bit of a move in here and a bit of a move out to the back of the neck. Let's look at what we can see over here. All right, so the head is definitely, too far out in the back, and then the neck also needs to come back here. You're asking, Alexander was asking about, should I move on to creating the rest of the body and do some of that? In certain instances, like where the neck and head and everything is connecting to the body, I think it might help you to do that, because proportionally, if you just have a floating head there and then you quickly do a neck, you're not going to be able to get that line to match up quite as well. So I think doing some of that will definitely help you. And then there's obviously some flatness that we want to fix in the face. Again, I don't know the reference that you're looking at, so this might be a little bit closer to what you're seeing there. I'm just going to kind of go off what we got here in terms of our proportions and just kind of fill in some of this information. All right, So we got our kind of basic proportional changes there. Other than this, other than those like big things, there are some like changes to the shape of the head that I would make, just to like get this a little bit closer to what we want to see in terms of shape for the skull. And then if we look at this from the back side, that jaw is sticking out super, super far. Put your hands right here on your own corners of your jaw, and most people that I've seen, at least, don't really have corners of the jaw that stick out quite that far. It's a pretty natural blend between the corner of your jaw and your neck. So try to get that. Look in the mirror, you know, take some pictures of yourself, find some references online, and try to get that to be a little bit more accurate to what we see in reality. So we'll do that next. And let me make sure I didn't miss anything here in chat. You could not subdivide your model. You gave up after hours of trying. Well, that's no fun. Let's see. What ended up happening? We got a link here. A Google search, maybe. Translator. Okay. Hope your bot won't delete the link. No, links are totally cool. That's no problem at all. If I wanted to know how your name sounds, it just goes to translator. Oh, you can do the little text-to-speech thing. That's right. Julie's Art, what's going on? How you doing? You made it. That's right. Just in time. Just in time for all the fun. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something. Oh, Iguardo, who is now and forever Iguardo. I don't want to know how to say your name. This is now how your name is said. Iguardo, if you are having trouble subdividing your model, you could have something hidden. You might be at the poly limit for your machine. What else could cause that? Those are like the two that immediately come to mind. But it sounds like you're pretty new, so, you know, I got a bunch of tutorials, free tutorials on my YouTube channel. There's a link to my Gumroad below, which has all the paid stuff. So maybe that's something you want to look at. But if you want to send in your Z tool, email it to me, and I can take a look at it on stream today. Go ahead and get in the queue, and we can figure it out, problem solve it right now. Let's do it. All right. Let's continue fixing our neck. Remember that jaw is sticking out real far. That's no bueno. So let's mask this off and fix it. And I'm gonna try not to talk about tools and brushes that I'm using too much because I don't think that's incredibly important. I more so want to focus on, you know, the form and shape that we are creating. There's also a little bit of awkwardness going on up here. So we're gonna try jumping around a lot, fixing as much as we can. I think you are fine with you know, kind of the strong jaw that you have. But there's kind of this awkward like volume here going on. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's very round. So what I would recommend doing is maybe just taking a quick pinch or so through there and maybe trim up some of this information and then just start to soften that. So instead of getting like that awkward kind of roundness that you were getting there, instead you'll get an actual hit where that translates, and then it'll just end up looking a lot more clean. And you can work on that however you want. The jaw still feels like it's kind of awkwardly wide right now, but I think that's mainly because of how the cheekbone area is translating down there. So the cheeks feel very sunk in. And this is kind of the stuff that I was talking about where you want to kind of turn on perspective, turn it off while you're working, and go back and forth. If you keep it off the whole time, you're going to end up with some awkwardness later on. So let's try to fix some of this and fill in some areas. What we can do again is turn on our see-through mode if we got our images back behind us. We'll just use that one for now. You know what? Actually, let's just import these since I'm not using these little guidelines anymore. So real quick, I'll do that, and then I'll take another look at chat. And these are two different females that I quickly just grabbed from a folder on my machine. Again, I don't have the reference from Alexander, so I'm not sure what he's referencing. We just want to grab something here at least. I would probably not recommend using two different faces most of the time. But for now, it'll be just fine for something quick. Julie's art, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Hannibal, what's going on, man? Welcome back. Was the head male? I don't know. It looked pretty androgynous to me. It looked a little feminine. Well, you know, it looked a little feminine here. I'll load in the original. Felt more feminine to me. I don't know. Maybe not. But we will look back at that here in a little bit after we make some more changes. Take a picture of it so the chat can take a shot? Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and give that a try as well. Go up here to Tool, Save As, and you can save your Z tool and then email it to me if you want to do that. Oh, thank you, Julie. Julie's already on top of it. She already got it. A lot of 3D modelers always make beautiful people. Where's the uglies? Oh, we can make some uglies later, don't worry. What's going on, baby? Baby's first puke. Awesome. Awesome name. Alright. Okay. So what do we want to do here? I think the first thing that I want to do is fill in that volume along the cheek. As we start rotating around in 3D, we really start to get pretty sunken in here. So let's just do, you know, a quick mask. Find that mouth meat. That sounds weird. Alright, let's pull that out with our move brush. Just going to drop down to a really low subdiv and start pulling some of that out. Just a tad here and there. And I think the thing that is really bothering me right now is the angle of the eyes from the front view. We're getting this outward slant. I would say, if anything, if you want to aim, first of all, eyes are really hard. Second of all, to aim for more of an appealing look, I would try to get those corners to be a little bit more flat, or if anything, a little bit more turned in, kind of like what we're seeing up here. So I'm just going to grab my move brush and break some stuff. Yay, I love breaking other people's models. So we're going to start by doing that. We're just going to turn off our eyes. And we're also going to look at this from the side because you have another thing that's causing a really awkward look to your eyes, which is eyelid order. And eyelid order is something that I talk about all the time on my stream here. Essentially, you want that top eyelid to be hanging more forward than the lower eyelid. So this one up top should be further out than this one. Not only that, well, first of all, this makes the eyes look a lot more natural in the eye socket, which is a little shallow right now, so we'll fix that as well. But also, it's going to keep your eyes from feeling like they're kind of popping out and looking up, which we do not want. For your eye socket, you know, there's a billion ways to do something like this. I guess we could just try to do a quick mask and push that in or something. Just real quick to get some more depth in there, just so none of the geometry is poking out where our eyes are. And I think that already starts to look better. If we really want to push these to a good level, though, I think we're gonna have to spend a lot of time on these eyes. But the main thing that I want you to do, get those eye corners instead of going outward like you had before, or outward, slanted down to the outside, slant them up to the outside, or a little bit more flat. This really isn't that steep of an angle that I have right now. And then you can focus a little bit more on that eyelid order that we just looked at, as well as making sure that you're getting a good wrap here. get a good shape. There's a lot that we can do here. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. We'll just kind of tweak that a little bit. And let's just undo so we can see those changes really quick. So slanted out, and then slanted down, slanted up. So I think that'll help you get towards more of an appealing direction with a pretty minor change. So I won't change that too much more, because I don't want to sit here and resculpt everything. We'd be here all day. Eduardo can make some uglies if you want him to. That's very generous of you. You make props and environments. Julie does. And sometimes enjoys making characters or creatures. What was the last creature that I did? That dragon. I've been feeling a little creaturey lately. Might do something more creaturey next. I don't know. I have some ideas for what I want to do next here on stream though. The smushier the better. Super helpful to help you understand. Awesome. Some people look more horrifying than monsters. Gasp. Some people are monsters. Alright, let's turn our perspective back on. And I think things are really starting to, you know, with some pretty minor changes, starting to look a lot better. Starting to get more towards an appealing level, as well as be a little bit more closer to anatomical truth. I'm not sure what exactly is going on up here with the brow. I'm not sure if you were in the process of sculpting eyebrows or something like that you were just going to sculpt directly on top of your head. But the transition between this shape here and the skull is not correct. So let's fix it. Let's change it up. So what's going on here is this shape here is supposed to be that fat pad that sits right above the outside part of your eye, the outer top corner. It's a little big, it doesn't transition very well, and it's a little far out. So I think we're gonna try to fix all of that at once with some trim dynamic and a little bit of smooth, kind of fill in some of that transitional area. And I'm gonna try not to destroy the eyelids that you've sculpted here. We'll see how that goes. But just to start cleaning that up. And this fat pad typically doesn't go this far in most stuff that I see. So I would maybe try to fade that out a little bit more soon, and I think this is really going to also help the appeal of your eyes here. So let's try and, again, not to break your dang old eyelids. Very good at breaking people's models. But sometimes you gotta break it to fix it. Actually, most of the time you gotta break it to fix it. And then I just want to soften the shape of your brow that you had in there a little bit. And I've kind of moved out the bridge of your nose a little bit, more than probably we want for a feminine face. I like to keep that bridge a little bit more, what would you call it? Or small, I guess, just in general. Less of a major feature, more of a minor feature. Let me just continue cleaning up this transitional area just a little bit more here. And we won't mess with the eyes too much more. All right, let's look at the nose. So I wanted to fill in the silhouette here. There are some issues with how that's translating there, so let's just kind of pull that in and maybe start to try to change the shape of the nose here. There's a lot of variation in noses, in bridges of the nose, in the shape of the actual nose, in most feminine faces, I like to keep my nose, like I said, pretty small. So I would probably just kind of scale this in a little bit. It feels a little wide as well. Other than that, I think you got some good shapes going on here. I think maybe like the wings of your nose are a little bit too loopy from the profile. That's a very technical term, by the way. Too loopy. And then kind of feeding off of all these shapes here. So, you know, kind of work on maybe making this a little bit more flat. But then working off of the shapes, kind of coming into the upper lip, because all this stuff works together. This is a very common thing. I can't remember what the dip on your upper lip is called, but this is just over-exaggerated way beyond what it needs to be. This is very common. I see people do this all the time. You know, you see these features that you recognize early on, and you're like, oh, I gotta put that in there. But a lot of the time, it's just way too overdone and not necessary. You also end up getting this kind of awkward concave shape from the silhouette. I want to get rid of that, and I want to make sure that the nostril is blending into that upper lip a little bit more accurately. If you look at your own nose or a couple of the references here, you sometimes get a little bit of that volume or that hit right there, but for the most part, this typically translates pretty cleanly up into there. You could also probably reshape a lot of this, I think, to get it a little bit more accurate. Just the shape of the nostrils in general are probably not as round or clean as we would want here. Some of this is a little thin. I think there's a lot that you could do here for this transitory translation trans area. For that area. All right, cool. Let's keep moving down the face here and check on chat real quick. Shut up, phone. Stop. This keeps happening. Turning on airplane mode. All right. Or actually, here. Alright, is this Iguardo's first character? First thing that he's ever sculpted in ZBrush? I believe so. It is. So you are using some Z-spheres. Very cool, my man. Sounds like fun. Are you trying to divide the Z-spheres? That might be your problem. Zach, what's going on, dude? Very interesting stream. Always wondering how they made accurate copies of women's faces. I don't know who they is, but this is how I do it. Do you use any basic lineups? How do you put the front face and the background transparent? How do you put the front face in the background? So in ZBrush, I'm using the what's this called? Spotlight tool. So you can look up a tutorial for this on my YouTube channel. There's a link down below. There's a lot of different options, but it allows you to move your images, grow them, shrink them, turn down the opacity, all sorts of great stuff. So you can line up images and use them as a reference if you want. We are currently just critiquing a head sent to us by Alexander, and we're currently going down the face, whoops, after we've made some kind of large-scale changes here to a lot of different things. But now we're moving down to our lips. I think Alexander, I think he's got some good stuff going on with his lips. I think there's just, in general, some cleanup that we could do down here. And this might be from my projection. It is not. So there's some weird, let's see how deep that actually goes. Not too deep. So I typically split my head when I'm sculpting lips to try to get this to be a little bit easier to work on. You could also just take a damn standard brush though and carve in and work on that, and then, you know, mask off one side so that you can only sculpt on the top lip while you do this. The first thing that really stuck out to me with the lips was the corners start to turn a little bit too much, and then we get this kind of awkward volume here, I guess, is how I would describe it. If you look at a few of the faces that we have here, and this is why it's really important to reference real humans when you're looking at your anatomy, but we want those corners of the lip, or that upper translation area, to come all the way down here to the lip. Did I make a polygroup? I did make a polygroup. And then the same thing on your lower lip. So what you have going on is the shapes of the lips are like turning in to create this like really narrow shape, but then you still have the corners really far out here. And it makes it look like the mouth is wider than it needs to be, and the lips are not covering the entire portion of the mouth. So we're gonna try fixing that by carrying that shape all the way through. And I'll also say that much like with the nose and how that interacts with the upper lip and all these shapes work together, the same thing is true with the bottom lip and the chin. All of these shapes kind of work together. So we can look at some of our references here. I think some of these shapes are maybe just even a little bit too strong down here for this chin, although I do think that you did have a pretty good idea of the translation that you wanted to make. I think maybe the execution could just be a little bit better. So we will try to do that as well. So we'll try to do all this stuff at once. And I'll try to still keep most of the shape that you have here for your lips, because I think you do have some good stuff. I think it's just a matter of really looking at a reference and taking it to that next level. So let me try to do this a little quickly. As always, we'll break a few things. We love breaking stuff, so we'll do that too. Whoops. Apparently I have an art station. What do you call those commands? I forgot that I had this set up. There are some links down below though if you guys want to find my other stuff, or if you're new here. We've been working on Android 17 for the past like 2 or 3 weeks. I guess like 2 weeks, and then we took a break and worked on him for like a day. But he was a ton of fun to work on. But yeah, I don't know. We're gonna start another big project here soon. I was thinking that maybe we could do another one of my 3D fusions and then actually get a 3D print at the end, like a full color sandstone print. I think that might be a lot of fun. But I don't know. I mean, we really have a lot of options here. Let me make sure. I think Sixit was saying that he was sending in an email. I don't know if Sixit did, but if you are just joining us, we are doing some critiques today, some critiques here on the live stream. So if you guys want to get in, all you have to do is email me your ztoolfollygon@gmail.com and you can get in. I'm going to adjust the shape of your ear a little bit too. Just make it a little bit more small. You do have some good stuff going on with your ear. I do like the shapes that you got going on. I think you've done a pretty good job back here. I would say maybe where it just starts to fall apart a little bit is when you rotate around to the back, this area. How this connects here. Let's see, what do I want to use? We'll just try to do this real quick. Try to find some reference of this angle or take a picture of your own ear if you can get back there. And try to figure out how that connects back there. The way that that's blending is a little bit too smooth, and I think in general your ears are maybe just sticking out quite a bit too far. So let's also take a look at bringing those in. We'll just set up some quick masks. And when I mask things from the orthographic view, remember you want to turn off your perspective so that it doesn't mess up your selection. So I'll just do a basic mask, soften that, rotate up to the top, grab my translate, rotate tool there, pull those back a little bit, maybe even mess with that angle a little bit. And I feel like your, is this the anti-helix, I believe? In some ears, let me make sure that is correct before I go saying things. I believe it's the anti-helix. It doesn't really matter, but I just want to make sure that I'm saying the correct word. This, gimme you. Yes, the anti-helix. So a lot of the time, the anti-helix, if you're looking from the front view, will stick out beyond the helix. I think that you've just kind of pushed that a little bit too far. Kind of like with the groove in the upper lip. You see these things and you recognize them, and then, you know, it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb in your head, and you're like, oh, I gotta do this, but a lot of the time you end up pushing it further than it really needs to. So, let's just reshape our ear a little bit, kind of push and pull around, break some more stuff with our move brush, our good buddy the move brush. And I'll just soften that a little bit. Also, the shape up here tends to split on that anti-helix, so keep that in mind as well as you're sculpting around there. In terms of the actual helix, you could maybe take like a standard brush and try to carve in up around there to get that edge a little bit better, and then use like a positive stroke on top. It's a little bit laggy to try to get that out on the outside edge to overlap. You could also use some masks to do something like this, and then grab your move brush and pull that down around that area. So you can start to get that little bit of overlap that you would see in your own ear. I won't do it to the whole thing, just to give you an idea of the direction that you might want to take that. All right. Other than that, you know, I would maybe just mess with your ear shape a little bit more here. I'm just kind of looking at her ear. She's got a pretty big hangy downy, not the tragus, but I can't remember. That's the tragus. Forget all my ear parts. That's okay. As long as you know where they are and where they're supposed to go. That's the most important part. All right, let's turn our perspective back on and just kind of see some of the changes that we've made, and we can talk about them. It's a sexy chin you got there. Well, thank you. Thank you, Brendan. It is not my chin now, unless you're talking about this chin. This one's mine. All right, so Alexander. Oh, you know what? There's another thing I want to do to Alexander's head. I mentioned the eyes. So Alexander sent this in for our critiques. A few of the things that we did, we shrunk down the proportions of the head quite a bit. We fixed a lot of the shapes in the eyes, started to clean those up, filled in a lot of the volumes around here. Coming down from your nasolabial fold, it was starting to look pretty sunk in, a little bit too sunk in, I thought, around the jawline. There's still some more work, I think, that can be done to this for sure, but I just wanted to point out some of the anatomical proportions that were a little bit, you know, pushed too far. I think the head up top was a little bit too wide. Some of the things that Alexander did do really well, though, just proportionally looking at this from the top, you know, we do want this to get wider as it goes back, but I think maybe some of that was pushed a little bit too far to where it felt like the head was a little bit bulbous back there. I think there are some more stuff. Now that I've like pulled in on the actual dome here, we could probably reshape a lot of this to make this feel a little bit more at home. Reshape our temple area and continue playing with a lot of this. And start working a little bit more maybe on the depth of our lips and all that. There's a lot that we could do here, but those are the anatomical things that I think would start to push you in a good direction. And I think for spending a little bit here looking at those few things, I think you'll start to be headed in the right way. And if anything, you could probably blend between the strong chin that we have pinched out down here. And probably play with these lips quite a bit more. But like I said, I want to give some more time for some other people to get some critiques in here. So if you guys want to get in today, follygon@gmail.com, shoot me your stuff, and we will take a look. From the profile, we don't want this kind of square blocky shape for our lips as well. We want a little bit more volume on that top area, and then we want that bottom lip edge here, this bottom one that I'm pinching right now, we want that to blend pretty well. We don't want a super strong shadow there unless we're talking about like right under the lip, which is fairly common. You can see that kind of dark shadow there a little bit in some of these. For the most part though, I would blend between these two shapes pretty strongly. And then I'll just kind of clay tubes this up, get some extra volume in there. And just like a little softening between those two shapes. And that starts to push it a little bit closer to what we're looking for. And then again, I would just, Alexander, take your corners, or the translation of your lip, the actual lip, the flesh of the lip there, all the way to the corner of your mouth. Whereas I was tucking in a little bit too early here for that shape. Alright. Some people just have a bulbous head, this is true. I know a few. Francisco, what's going on, man? You don't have anything done? Well, that's okay, it doesn't have to be finished. The point of a critique is not to get it critiqued at the very end, although that is nice, but, you know, get a critique and then continue working on it. Here, we'll spend a little bit more time on this this gal, until we get something else. Let's see. We're not even at an hour yet. Let me open up my emails. Those are I think in general that's like the major critiques I would give. Other than this, it's more of just actually taking the time to, now that you've got the anatomy in the right place, now that you've got like the large scale proportions in the right place, start pushing everything closer to your reference and more towards that appeal that we want to see. There's a lot in this face that we would like to change to get closer to a nicer appeal. Let's go ahead and do some of that while we wait. Today exists just for you guys. That's what our stream is for. So if you guys want to get your stuff critiqued, send it in. If not, we will have a short stream today, which is fine with me. I got some other work that I can do. I got too many works that I can do right now. All right, let's bring some of these bony landmarks back. There are... The transition between the ear here is a little bit weird. I would probably work on that a little bit as well. Let's see if we can just shape up our head a little bit better. Take a look at this from the profile. I feel like there's a lot of depth that we're lacking around the cheekbone area, where it just feels like you could push that back quite a bit. So let's do a quick mask here. Try pulling back on some of this. Tony, what's going on, dude? Welcome to the stream. There's also some areas with the sides of the neck, the sternocleidomastoids, everybody's favorite muscle, right? It was feeling pretty exaggerated. It was just kind of, you know, drawn on top. So I took some smooth brush there, cleaned that up a little bit. You might want to start getting that back in if you're, you know, really worried about some of this stuff. But for the most part, you don't want those to be incredibly strong. Unless, you know, you have a bodybuilder that you're working on. A little bit more flat back here as well. We're coming back, getting those traps to flow up, connect up there. Feel a little bit more accurate to what we're looking for. Let's see, from the profile, I think that chin is a little bit too strong still. So let's work on bringing that back home. Make sure that our lip order is correct as well. We want that lower lip under the upper, just a little bit. And what I like to do typically for this area, other than fix our jaw real quick, angle of our jaw is a little jank, but I like to split my lower mouth off, the lower portion of my jaw. It makes it a little bit easier to get in here and sculpt on your lips, whereas when they're connected and dynameshed together like what you have, if you're like, oh, I want to sculpt some volume here, it's like, it's really hard to actually get in there and get what you need. So I would maybe try doing that as well. What else? What else could I say? I feel like the translation from that upper lip coming back into the nasolabial fold, into the cheek and all that. This area in general is typically pretty tough to figure out. Try to find some images with some really good lighting, and I think that'll help you for sure. But this starts to tuck a little awkwardly through here. You do want to try to get that orbital muscle around your around the corner of your mouth, but often it looks like maybe you've exaggerated this so far and pulled it in so far that it really starts to, so like I can see the line of where you have it, but it's still like tucked in so far that it feels like this is like pulled back way too much. And we can maybe look at the shape of our eyes some more. Let's see. The one thing I wanted to show you with your eyes as well, instead of using this sphere, I would use the point sphere. So if you append a sphere 3D, this sphere is a lot better for eyes. Just by default, I know it's really high resolution if you're trying to create something low res later on, but the reason why you'd want to use something like this instead is because of that vertice right there. It makes it very easy for you to paint your eyes later on. So let me put this where you had your eyeball. So now you can come in here, and here, we'll just RGB it up. Fill that in with white, and then when you go to paint your black, whoops, turn off Z add. When you go to paint your black, you just click right on that vertice, wiggle your mouse around a little bit, and just like that, you can start painting up your eye concentrically. Also, from the side view, what you can do is make a mask, as long as you got perspective off, and make a really clean selection. And then you can press Ctrl W, polygroup that. A lot of help, a lot of different options here. Sure, we'll use our basic material too. And I'll just put that eyeball about where you had yours, and then I'll delete your old eyes. For your actual eyelids, like I said, there's a lot that can happen up here that will help get you into a better area. The eyelid order that we looked at, I think, will help you out a lot. The other thing is, what is that? Ah, I got a little star in here. The other thing would be to make sure that you're getting a nice, crisp, clean edge between your eyelids. I like to use lower poly geometry for eyelids a lot of the time, and then I'll merge it in later. It tends to help me out a lot, just to make sure that I'm sculpturally getting something clean. And then from there, another thing that's really going to help you out, I think, is trying to get this plane of the eyelid to be flat and also pointing towards the center of your eyeball. That'll be a lot closer anatomically to what you're looking for. But I think you know, we can continue messing with this all day, which I would be happy to do. And we can maybe continue doing that because I don't see any more critiques. So I will mess with this. I will give, let's say, a half hour more for another person to get a critique in. And if that is not the case, I think I just... Okay, that was weird. My browser just froze. All right. I'll give it a half hour or so for people to get some more stuff in if they want to get some critiques in today. But if not, I think that'll be it for today. So get your stuff in. Get your stuff in, and we can do some more work. All right, let me run a Dynamesh on this just because some of the geometry around here is pretty crazy. We no longer need the low-res subdivs, right? We're fine. We can up-res this and just go from there. Beckert, you did something. What did you do? All right, so now we're at 2.5, or not 2.5, a little over 2 million polys. We can get a lot better resolution out of this if we cleaned it up and got some nice edge flow, but for just, you know, sculpting Dynamesh on this, this is fine. What I would recommend for your lower eyelids, I like to do this a lot of the time, is carve in to begin getting that shape. And then, let me pull down on this corner a little bit, this inner corner a little bit more. And then I like to fade out here. Uh-oh. And this is something that's referred to as edge quality. And this is something that you need to think about, not just in your eyes, but in pretty much everything. Anytime you have a hard edge, you don't want that edge or even just any stroke to just end abruptly. You don't want just a start and a finish point. What's going on here? So you don't want that to just end right there. My mask pen brush was being strange there. So instead, what you want for pretty much all of your strokes is you want a part of that stroke where it's a little tighter or a little bit more strong than the rest of the stroke. So you can kind of fade that out. I try to do this when I'm making a stroke in general, so, you know, start off light, and then go hard, and then fade out, instead of just having what you would get with your mouse, which is just, you know, one straight line. And my sensitivity on my brush is pretty low, so it's not super apparent. Let's turn it up. You don't want just a, you know, pure stroke all the way through. You want, whoops, we'll try not to do that across the symmetry plane there. You want a little bit of a fade out there, instead of that abrupt, just cut off point. So try to get that in certain areas, like underneath your eyes, where you can get a little bit of that shape underneath the lower eyelid, but we don't want to exaggerate it too much because it ends up looking like you have some really strong bags under your eyes, and that's never a good thing unless you're trying to make someone that looks a little bit older. Pull out a little bit here. And I would say maybe we could pull in along the brow shape as well a little bit. Feels like a little strong over here. So there's maybe some trimming up that we could do around this shape in general without trying to lose that transition that we have. I'm going to switch my material back. And just do some light trimming. Same with the kind of sharper points that I've created up here. A lot of that can be trimmed out. More of just kind of blocking stuff out for my own self to be able to know where some of these translational points should take place. Plane changes, if you will. And it's okay to keep things a little bit messy at this stage, especially when you're worried about fixing the big things. It'll actually help you to not get too worried about the small changes. Try not to focus on those too much. First work that you're proud of, kind of. You don't have to, you can be proud of it. It's not bad to be proud of something. Koro Moro, what a name. If nobody here except me wants critiques, I sent another head. It's crappy as well, but in a different way. We can take a look. Sorry for mistakes. No, there's no reason to apologize for making mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. The objective is not to you know, not make mistakes, but to make mistakes and learn from your mistakes. You're always going to make mistakes. Sculpting's really hard, and it's something that takes a long time to, you know, get good at, right? But also at the same time, it's something that even when you're good at, you're still going to make mistakes, and you're going to have to recognize those mistakes and spend a lot of time on your stuff and get it to a point where it looks good. Everything starts off looking like an alien, and everything looks bad until it doesn't. So take your time on it. We've I hope that even though, you know, the crap that I've sculpted down here on the lips looks really flat right now, I hope that the information that I gave was helpful in pointing in the right direction. You still want to get that nice cutoff here. I didn't really take the time to do it, but just making sure that you're getting, whoops, a nice translation between these two shapes. I think that'll help you out. Alright, cool. Let's see. Let's check the email. Merged Buddha. Let's give it a download. Alright, this is from Beckert, who wants us to take a look at this Buddha head, as well as Snowpiercer 2. Got some Chungas. Is it Chungus or Chunger? I don't know. And then we got something from Koromoro as well, which is maybe downloading? We'll see. I guess I'll just wait. Oh god. My computer's just gonna explode. Thanks for the virus! No. You had a dream about the model that you did? That's fun. Yeah, I've dreamed about sculpting in ZBrush as well. So, I think this is the same head that you actually sent before, Alexander. It looks to be the same, from what I can tell. So, I will not work on that one anymore. But if you meant to, whoops, yeah, that one. If you meant to send a different file, you can go ahead and resend that if you need to. Alright, so we got something from Beckert here. Ooh, we got another Google Drive file. I'll go ahead and download that. See if this is it. Alright, we got another head here. Feeling feminine in certain areas and masculine in others. You know what, maybe we can look specifically at the lips in this face, because I see a lot of the same issues that you've done with your lips, and we can maybe take some time to do that. But let's start by looking at Beckert's Buddha head. Alright. Let me grab my chat back up. You saw the brow and nose in your dream, this kind of swooping shape here. It is fun. Alright. How do we want to tackle this? Let's run in auto groups. And I don't know, let's look at a Buddha statue, I guess. Mostly, you know, if this is supposed to be like, I don't think you're going for anatomical correctness, obviously, with a lot of the shapes that you have going in here. It's more of a kind of statue kind of deal going on. So I won't, we won't talk about anatomy. Instead, we will talk about the shapes that you have incorporated into here and how we can maybe clean some of those up and make some of them look a little bit nicer. I'm not seeing anything that's super close to what you've done. But that's okay. We don't need it. We'll just kind of go off of what you got here. So the first thing I will do is, again, much like what I did with the last piece, I will remesh this just so I can get something a little bit easier to work with. Let's go for 5K is probably a little bit too high for something like this, but it should be fine. It shouldn't matter. A little bit too high of a resolution is never a bad thing. Actually, it's pretty bad, but we'll make do. All right. Let me subdivide and project a couple times here, and I'm gonna try to not change too much of your shapes that you got going on here, but instead just clean stuff up. So I'll give some tips on how you can do that, because I think that's where this falls apart the most. So first, what I recommend doing is doing what I just did and getting some subdivs on your piece. I think that'll make it a little bit easier to work with. And then in little areas, or let's talk about big changes first. Up here, the way this, you've connected the ear to the head, right? You've started to sculpt this, but what ends up happening a lot of the time is the shape of your head gets deformed as you start to worry about the shape of other stuff. So make sure that as you're moving on to secondary and tertiary forms, that your primary forms are staying, you know, the shape that you want them to remain. So just a quick few changes here, and the head is starting to, you know, get back to that nice clean round shape. As well as, you know, we could go through here, I think, in a lot of different areas and just hit some stuff with some pinch brush, really start to clean up a lot of these translations that are, you know, a little messy. So we can clean up some of this stuff and really start taking a lot of this to the next level. And there are just, in general, you know, some forms that we'd probably want to spend some time cleaning up. But yeah, we'll just kind of take a line through here, just so you can kind of see some of the areas that you might want to clean up a little bit. And it'd probably be easier if you split these, like if you did these ears separately and then combined them later on, so you didn't end up breaking the shape of your head. Same thing, you know, around your brow line, grab your pinch brush or whatever you like using and start to clean that up. It's an amalgam of a couple Buddhas. You sculpted the ears right on the head. Yes, I can tell. Sometimes it's easier to split that stuff up. I prefer doing that, but you know, this is a statue, right? So we want a lot of this stuff to be pretty clean, you know, look a little bit more hard surfacey. It's a very technical term. You might want to do some stuff to your eyelids to make them look a little bit more like eyelids, or maybe look at some more statues and see what they have done. Try to go off of there. I don't know, we can just, you know, we can head in less of an organic direction and try to make some just interesting additional shapes to make these look a little bit nicer. And play around with it. And then just kind of feed off some of the lines that you already have in here and get some of this stuff like flowing together. And a lot of the thing here that you really just need to work on is how clean your sculpting is. It's just kind of all over the place. Let's try filling in some of this here. Make sure that our jawline is also flowing, you know, properly from where you got it. Coming all the way through. And, you know, I'm just kind of tightening some stuff up, trimming some other shapes, playing around with what you already got, exaggerating some more things. Nothing in particular, just kind of picking up on some of the forms that I'm seeing here and cleaning up what I can. Like down here in the neck, I would say that this kind of feels like a little wormy, and it doesn't look super great. It's like not super appealing. So if you want to head in this direction, if you're trying to make like rings or something like that for the neck, which I saw in one of the Buddhas, what you could do instead is append a ring 3D. This is the easiest way to do something like this, just real quick. And just slide that ring on down and scale them into position. And just like that, we got ourselves a ring that we can start duplicating and making into a necklace thing. I'm just control clicking and dragging. And this will be much cleaner than trying to hand sculpt or dynamesh this all together. I would do the same thing for the base. I would poly model, hard surface model this. Or if you want to make this look more like it's cut out of stone, you could come through and add some you know, abnormalities to this, like trim up some edges with a trim dynamic, use like your damn standard brush or something, and start, you know, cutting parts of the edge, make it look a little bit more like stone, like I said. You're gonna 3D print it and make a real one. Very fun. Probably do some FDM, I'm guessing PLA. Sounds like fun though. I'm just gonna thin out this neck a ton to make that fit within our ring mess a little bit better. So just a few changes here and there. I could, you know, we could do less rings, we could make these more thin, and just something quick here. And then I would just continue going through, tightening up some more forms, cleaning it up. Like I said, there's just a lot of messiness going on here. I don't really like the shapes that you got going on in the lips originally, so I'm gonna change those up. It looked a little awkward. They didn't really feel like lips. Felt more like a W, a W. Let me see, let me open up the original so we still got that in here. So this just feels like a little bit too warbly, a little bit too all over the place. So let's try to get a more distinct shape in there. What would we want to carve out of stone for our booty? Our booty brother. I don't actually like the dip in there. It feels a little unnatural. Doesn't look super appealing. Buddha was a big boy, right? Give him those big boy cheeks. Still some more cleanup that we can do around a lot of these edges, but I don't think we need to do every single edge. I think you get the idea here. So I won't go through and clean up all that. But, yeah, I think things are already starting to, after a very little amount of work, start to clean up quite a bit. I would kind of do the same thing to the hair. You do have some good shape and language, like directionality to this. I would, if you plan on printing this, I would try to exaggerate a lot of this detail a lot more, just because that's not going to come out too well in your print, depending on the scale that you do something like this at. Also, if you want to do like a little gem or dot up here, or whatever that's supposed to be, I would recommend actually inserting a piece of geometry to make that a little bit more accurate. Let's see. We got our hard cylinder. We just slide that into place. and bevel some edges. Not that direction. If you guys want to learn how to use the ZModeler brush and do some hard surface modeling, I just streamed 2 days ago and did a like 2 or 3 hour tutorial on using the ZModeler brush, all that stuff, hard surface modeling, and it is now on my YouTube channel. We ended up making just a quick clock. So if you guys want to go check that out, YouTube/Follygon. Alright, let's bevel this. Something like that, you know? We're trying to get stuff to be as clean and kind of hard surfacey as we can. And then, you know, just kind of cleaning up the other edges, as I mentioned. But I think you get the idea. All right, let's see. Beckert says it's going to be almost 1-to-1, so the detailing will be fine. I don't know what you mean by 1-to-1. That's not like one is not a measurement, unless you are printing this at, I don't know. Depending on what scale you print this at, it will define whether or not this comes in. And what I mean by scale is, are you going to print it at a meter tall, or are you going to print it at an inch tall? That's what I mean. So, depending on how big this hair is, that will define whether or not the texture will come through. But I would go through, if I were you, and just kind of clean this up. It gets really messy in the back. Kind of all blends together back here. And it looks like you did break symmetry on parts of this, but not on other parts. I would try to at least break up your symmetrical plane a little bit better, like you've done in this middle piece. Got some directionality going on there. I think you could do that towards the middle here and definitely back here. I think that'll help you out a lot. But like if you printed this at an inch tall, it might not come out so well. If you printed it at like 7 inches tall, I think it would be fine. See ya, size of a real head. Well, Beckert's out of here. No problem. I guess we will move on to something else. I think that's pretty much all we had to say about that either way. All right, we have another head by, so just so people can see the changes that we have made thus far. Just kind of clean up a lot of the hard surface shapes, get some really clean edges in here. And yeah, I think there's some other areas where you could use some like hard surface geometry to represent these forms a little bit better than sculpturally by hand sculpting. Hand sculpting, you're never gonna get quite that, you know, hard surface polish that you could get with something like this, where you can just subdivide it and boom, you got some nice rings there. Voila. All right, I had another head here. I don't know where it went. Another head by Alexander. I guess I deleted it. Let's try to open it back up. I believe this one was it. Yes, here we go. So this is from Alexander. We took a look at one of his heads earlier. And let me make sure I don't have any more emails as well. I do not. All right, no problem. So this will probably be the last one that we look at unless we get more in between while working on this. All right. So from here, let's turn off our little stir boy and take a look specifically at the lips. So we already looked at one of these heads, and I think a lot of the changes here are pretty similar. If you guys are going to send me stuff that you want me to critique, I would really appreciate if you sent me whatever reference you're using and attempting to copy. it'll be a lot easier for me to critique, and I'll be able to give you a lot better information. We can get closer to what you're trying to represent. If you're not using reference, shame on you. Always use reference. All right, so pretty much all the same things that I mentioned on the last head, I would take into account here. So instead, we're gonna focus in on some lips and what we can do to make lips look a little bit more natural. You do have, what's nice here is a polygroup split up here. So we should be able to just select that, and you even have a mouth bag, which is great. That makes this so much easier for me to critique and get in here. So I'm just gonna split off your mouth, your lower jaw, and do a Dynamesh. Whoop. Try that at like 400K, or 400, 600K. 400 resolution. This does not translate to the size of your Dynamesh. The larger this scale, this is like completely arbitrary. All right, so let's look at the lips. What do we want to change here? A lot of the same notes that I gave on the last set of lips, but let's focus in on actually cleaning these up and making these look good. It looks like maybe it was supposed to be this reference here. This one by, who's this by? I thought I saw the name. Salvador Trecle. So go check out Salvador on ArtStation, guys. Here, I will save this image. Or you know what? So you're trying to do, I'm actually not going to reference this because you're trying to do an anatomical study off of a painting. And again, I'll go back to what I said before of you don't want to reference someone else's work when doing an anatomy study or trying to anatomically represent a head. I think a lot of the shapes here, I think you're too shallow on the cheeks, just to like say in terms of accuracy here. The shape of the nose is too wide, you need a bit more volume on the bottom. Pretty much all the same stuff that we looked at before on the last head. I would say you pretty much have all the same problems, except for the eye direction is a little bit better, but the transition between the eyelids and the rest of the skin around the eye socket is very sharp and drastic, and it looks kind of, you know, very, very put on. So let's focus on lips. That's all I'll say about stuff in general. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. All right, let's start with the top portion of the lip. Getting quite a bit too much dip here. So let's just let's maybe start from scratch. Let's you do have the volumes of the lips here, which is really good. You got the 3 pillows of the upper lip, and you have the 2 pillows of the bottom lip, but there's just some inaccuracies that we want to take care of. So what I'm going to do is just trim some stuff down. Let's take a step backwards and really focus on getting our primary shapes first. Because if our primary shapes don't look good, nothing that we do from there is going to work. It's like in cooking or baking, if you do step 1 and 2 wrong, step 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, they're not gonna matter because you already messed up the first few steps. So let's try taking our upper lip backwards a little bit. You gotta break it before we can buy it. Not quite. We gotta break it before we can fix it. So let's plane these out just a little bit. I'm just using my pinch brush, some trim dynamic, some clay tubes, and probably some move brush as well. But really that's about it. So this is, I think, another instance of you get in that situation where you know that the pillows of the lips exist, right? We have these 3 parts that make up the lips, but then we end up exaggerating that. So you want to sculpt what you know first, right? Obviously, but you also want to sculpt what you see. So just because we think and we know that there are these 3 segments of the lips, once there's fat and flesh and everything else on top of that, those aren't normally quite as strong as you know, what we might picture in our head. So let me open up the old one just so we can kind of toggle between these two as we continue to move forward. So we'll continue to do that. I'm just gonna get some more volume wrapping around here, coming down from your cheek, nasolabial fold, and we can start to get, I think, just a little bit more volume in general, wrapping around this area. This is normally how I sculpt lips, splitting stuff off like this. It makes it a lot easier, I think, to be able to get into your the inside of your lip, top and bottom. You can sculpt on them, and you can look at them from these really extreme views, and really helps in making these changes. So I like to do this a lot. So I'm glad that you did this. This makes it a lot easier on me. Let me open up my chat again. Beckert's still here. Beckert was saying goodbye to Julie. My B Beckert. All right, let's lip it up. Lip it up, lap it up. I don't know. The past tense of lip is lapped. Lap, sure. All right, so let's work on that plane, getting that nice plane into the corner of the mouth, which you have started to get some of that volume in that corner for that orbital muscle, which I love seeing. It's always a tough thing to get. See, I think you've done a good job of starting to do that. So just make sure that we're not getting too narrow there, because we do want this information to translate up into the rest of our face pretty well. We do have, that nasolabial fold that we want to think of, but in a younger face, it's really not going to be quite that exaggerated. Like if you look at me, right? I'm a young little, cute little boy, right? I don't really have a super strong nasolabial fold, but if you smile, real big, right? If you cheese, look at yourself in the mirror too, for some good reference. Then it becomes more visible, because the folds of your flesh are creating that transition there. So for the most part though, we pretty much want to erase this, but we still want to know that that form translates in that area. So that's important to know, but important to also not exaggerate and take way past what we want. So then let's continue blocking out down here for the bottom lip, and you've kind of done a little bit of the same thing, but you've done a better job on this one, I think, where the shape of the lips that you had started to transition a little bit too early before the corner. So there's a little bit of that going on. I think you've done definitely a better job here, which is great. Seeing some improvements. Yeah. Let's start to just shape up our lips here and see what we can do. And then we want to look at the profile, make sure that we're shaping all this up correctly. Now I don't know if you split the head like I did here to sculpt your mouth bag and all that, but if not, I will show you how you can reconnect these in just a moment to make this feel a little bit more natural, so we don't have a Joker scar, right, running up the side of the face, because that doesn't look super great. So we'll look at fixing that in just a moment. Alright, so just trying to get the volumes of the lips in here a little bit better. I think honestly that's probably good enough to where we could combine these back up. You've done a good job of... Where'd it go? You've done a good job of separating that lower lip and the chin. Again, I think just kind of getting that into a more appealing direction would be good. Depending on... The face feels, like I said, it felt a little bit feminine. It looks feminine to me up here, but down here in the jaw, it was starting to feel a little bit more masculine just because of how hard a lot of these shapes and transitions were. So I don't know, it doesn't really matter. As long as it looks good, we can go a little bit more androgynous. It's not gonna hurt anything. So let's go ahead and merge up our lips back together. So to do that, I'll also sculpt on the upper lip a little bit more. I'm going to temporarily pull open the mouth like so. Make sure that it's just touching at the corners so that when we Dynamesh this, it will connect there, but not anywhere else where we have the lips, where the lips could possibly be touching. We want to avoid that at all costs for merging these together, because that'll just break all the hard work that we've done. I will kind of sculpt these up just a little bit more, but for the most part, you know, this will really take shape once we combine these back up and start working on them a little bit more in that finished state. But the good thing is, I think a lot of this is starting to read a lot better, so maybe we could start to get those pillow lips back in there. Do I have dynamic on? We do. We'll turn that off. So we can start to get a few of those different segments back in there. Let's kind of work on this a little bit more. And remember, just because we know that there's these three segments, three pillows of the lips, right? We don't want to exaggerate that so much and have it feel unnatural and bloated. So really what we're looking for is just enough to get that kind of silhouette going on there. Whoops. Those two sides. 1, 2, and then obviously mirrored over to the other side as well. Hannibal, what's going on, dude? I continue to be impressed with your skill, true journeyman. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I'd love to send you something I'm working on, but I'm currently stuck at work. Hopefully next time. No problem, dude. Thanks. That's very nice of you. We will be doing more critiques live here on stream next Friday as well. I'm going to move my light down just so I can see a little bit better, so I can get an idea for that shape. Whoop. Again, we don't want to exaggerate this too much, because then it starts feeling very unnatural and very awkward. Looking at the lips here, luckily her teeth are showing, so we got a nice outline of that shape. It's pretty unapparent to see those three distinct shapes. Unless we have something like real strong there. So let's merge this all together, right? Let's merge down. Yay! And then we'll just run a Dynamesh. All done there. And what I typically do is just take a look at the corners of my mouth, see how bad we actually are in that merge. Let's do a quick mirror. And then typically what I'll do is I will, I'm gonna redo the polygroups here because it feels a little weird right now. Some weird geo going on there. So let me just do a very quick polygroup here. You want to remesh with polygroups, typically around corners of stuff, if you're trying to get to a point where you can work on it a little bit better. If you're just, you know, in here sculpting. So what you can do is Z remesh with keep groups on. And now, right around that area, let's aim for like 3K. That's probably enough. It's plenty. It looks like you've done some better work here around your ears with getting that transition. I would say look at where your ear is transitioning into your head though, and make sure that you're looking at your own ears or some other references, and make sure that you're, you know, blending that a little bit better. But yeah, let's see how that turned out. It looks like it's really creased in there, and we got like a weird turn. So I don't know if we can use that or not. We'll see. No, we are not doing critiques tomorrow as well. Critiques have been moved to Friday for now. But we will be doing more critiques next week, so don't feel bad if you can't get anything in today. Not the end of the world. Alright. Now we can work on cleaning up, a bunch of this garbage in here. There's some stars and stuff. I don't really care. I just want to do this quick so we can move on sculpting our lips and you guys can see some of the other changes we would make. Alright, with a quick mask here. Whoa, not what I wanted. Let's work on pulling up that corner a little bit. We can turn perspective back on, I guess. Delete our old head that we projected from. And yeah, we can either close up this mouth or leave it open, whatever expression or pose you're going for. Whatever works best for you. But from here, now we can maybe start, playing with the proportions and volume and everything else. Now that things are just kind of cleaned up all together in what I would call a better state for working on, start playing with some of this. Another thing that can really help with your lips while you're sculpting is to put some teeth behind there. I think teeth and just having like a cylinder back there really helps you figure out the shape of your mouth. So if you're struggling with some stuff, try that out. I think that'll really help you out. So to do that easily, you can just come down here and initialize any piece of geometry. So I'll typically like duplicate something and make a 212 cylinder, and then click on crease crease under geometry, and then turn on transparent and move my cylinder into place. Uh-oh, our crease didn't do what we wanted. Because it's set to 30. We want that on 45. Here, we will uncrease all, and then I'll crease at 45. And then just a small cylinder in here. You can mess with the scale and position and everything else for your merged teeth. And that can, like I said, just really help with placement for your lips, figuring out how round you want to make that, all that good stuff. But yeah, I'll let that quick save do its thing. And from here, it would just be a matter of, working up on our lips even more if we want to continue playing with the shapes. Like I said, I can play with this stuff all day. And I gladly would, but I got other stuff that I want to work on, or that I need to work on. And I also would like to critique more things, if we can. Yeah, I think that's feeling a little bit more natural if we want to jump between that last one, wherever I threw it. So we can see the changes there that we've made to our lips very quickly. So there's our old one, and here we are with some changes. So I think, knock that back a little bit, go back to that initial stage. Think about your primary forms. Try not to, you do know that there are these sections of the lips, but let's try not to exaggerate those too much and get closer to what we would see in reality. Other than that, I think you can kind of handle it from here and I will let you do that. There are some other things that I would change here, but I think all the notes are pretty much the same from the last head that we looked at. So I wanted to focus in on the lips since we didn't really do a good job on the last head and we kind of jumped around a lot. But that's all I got for that guy. Let's see. The waiting game. Alright. I am not seeing any other emails or links in chat. So I think that is going to be where we stop for the day for our critiques, unless we get another one in the next few minutes. I will wait to do that. Well, I'll give some time for somebody to send something in if you guys want to get something critiqued. Don't feel like you have to. It's more for people that are looking for critique to grow and take their sculpts to the next level. I can noodle around all day though. I love me some noodling. So maybe I'll do that here a little bit. Real quick, I will shout out that I will not be streaming tomorrow. I have to go pick up my lady friend from the airport. So I will not be streaming tomorrow, but we will be back on Monday. I did have this imported, I just moved this around. So no stream tomorrow, that's why we're doing the critique on Friday. And we will be doing the same thing next week as well. I will not be able to stream on Saturday next weekend as well. So we'll be doing live critiques on Friday. I will update the info down below for those that are not here right now. It's Green Day. And very quickly, I will just shout out my Gumroad, which is linked down below, which I'm sure most of you that hang out here already know about. I don't pay anything to advertise, so it's just the awesome word of mouth of you guys spreading it and sharing links and stuff like that, which I always appreciate. But I got some courses on here, some brushes, materials, my UI, all the stuff that I use professionally. This top row is all the courses. We got something for absolute beginners. It's meant to get you up and running in ZBrush as quick as possible. And then some more stuff for more intermediate and more advanced users as well. I would appreciate it if you check it out, if you have never before. And other than that, there's some more links below to all my other stuff, like my YouTube channel. If you're coming in here late on the stream, all the stuff gets uploaded there, as well as additional tutorials and all sorts of other goodies. Check it out. But I'm not seeing any other things. I will check my email one more time just to make sure we don't have anything. And I don't think so. So with that, I have to see you guys on Monday for our next stream. And you guys have a great rest of your day and a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Monday at noon EST. I stream every day except for Saturday and Sunday this weekend. So all weekdays next week, noon EST, and on Tuesday I stream on the Pixelogic ZBrush channel, yay, at 6 p.m. EST. So come on by if you are around. All right, you guys have a great weekend, great rest of your day, and I will catch you next time. See you guys.